All right, happy Monday rolling out. Happy Monday from Crystal XO. I hope everybody is off to an amazing week. I am excited about this week and excited about this conversation. You guys know we have wrapped up all the Ready to Love conversation. We have segued in to our conversation on Make a Move. But tonight for Reality Check, considering everything that happened last week, if you guys were watching this channel or watching just period, if you had the television on, you know that an interview that I did with Jada Pinkett went viral. And that interview was for Rolling Out. Shouts out to Rolling Out. We have a cover coming, so you guys stay tuned because I'm really proud of this cover that we did to celebrate Jada's book titled Worthy. But in this book and in her revelations, there's a lot of therapeutic work. But what was so interesting to me was that so many people were really, really angry. And there was so much negativity spread about something that really is a very personal thing. And so I had to get, there's a few people in this world that I look to for being able to give great commentary and being able to add perspective that I respect so much. We had last week, I had on my coach Latanya. We talked about reality TV and mental health. And these two ladies tonight are some of the other, my village that I go to for wisdom. You all got to know Dr. Nicole on Put a Ring on It. We enjoyed having conversations with her about relationships. But I thought having Dr. Nicole and her business partner, Crystal Khalil, on tonight to kind of add some perspective on the feedback and the vitriol that was really exchanged online when it came to Jada Pinkett Smith. And then also just to talk about relationships and how do we define our relationships and how do we become confident in our relationships if they look different than what other people are expecting from us. So without further ado, let me bring my ladies on for tonight. Please help me welcome Dr. Nicole and Crystal Khalil. Hello, ladies.
Hi,
Hello,
Crystal.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for being here. The last time you all were here, we talked about a conference that you guys were having, and there were so many of our audience that was excited about that and was able to attend and really get some great feedback and just good gems sewn into them. So I just want to start by thanking you guys for always being just a part of my personal tribe. I feel like that I can go to for perspective from a perspective of people who really are into offering therapeutic work, right? For people that are looking for perspective. So I just want to thank you guys for being available and willing to join me tonight.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, let's get into this, ladies, because I want to know, I did an interview with Jada Pinkett Smith. And even last week, I talked to the ladies that were on Ready to Love and different reality shows. And so often, specifically in the Black community, I feel like we are so hard on each other, specifically when it comes to Black women. And not only are we hard on ourselves and each other, but also others are hard on us as well. And so I just want to start by asking the both of you, what are your thoughts on the response to Jada Pinkett Smith and the interviews that she's been doing in her book to promote her new book, Worthy, that are really about her personal relationship?
Yeah. So let's talk about it. It's interesting. There is a guy out of Dartmouth who had a phrase that said, every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. So follow me for half a second. He said, it's not a well design, a good design. He said, every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. So, in other words, how people have responded is of no surprise to me.
Mm-hmm.
We have a system that speaks to these types of responses, and it's not conspiracy theory. It just is the way that it is. And it's funny if you want to break it down to a simple metaphor example. In our community, we often say that we are like crabs in a barrel, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing is, a barrel is not a crab's natural habitat, right?
I thought about that.
So you got to put it in an unnatural state with other crabs, because they don't act like that when they just in the sea with each other. When they just on the beach walking around, we watch them. They doing their thing. But if you take them out of their natural state and you put them in a barrel, they act like that because systemically you have crafted in some way their outcome. Right? So what I think we miss in our community often is that we've been systemically positioned to not want to experience each other's authenticity. Right? So if I'm no longer hiding, proving, defending, protecting, and I live from that space, speak from that space, what I'm going to get is a beat down from every side, especially if it is public and it is connected to another person in a relationship. So, in my opinion, that's what Jada is getting right now. And you notice I made no judgment on her relationship.
Right.
I made no judgment because I'm not in their marriage.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But I have zero surprise at how it is working, because this is how it works.
It's designed. Wow, that was deep. You guys do not play around with me now. You go ahead and like and share. You know, these ladies are coming with some wisdom. I'm already thrown off because I've never thought about that. The idea of a crab in a barrel, that is not its natural habitat. And I think that's the beginning of how we have so much self-hatred towards, we just don't understand. We charge each other with things that we have no idea. We don't give each other grace. We don't realize all of us are coming from a place of, we're coming from a deficit, being in an environment and in a culture that's not ours. Crystal, let me ask you, just when you were watching, because, you know, I'm gonna be honest. I had a great interview with Jada. I was shocked by some of the things that she said. But I would also assume if I sat down and shared with the public, which I would never do, like, you know, things about my personal relationships and my perspectives, that they could be shocking as well. One of the things that I did take into consideration, and she shares very candidly in the book, which again, I think it's an amazing book, and I would encourage people to read it. And I'm definitely not being paid to say that I think that. But she talked about dealing with thoughts of suicide, and the book opens with her being very candid about trying to figure out how she could do that in a way that would not dishonor and shame her family. And my heart broke for her, because I feel like so many of us have been there. So Crystal, let me ask you, listening to everything and seeing how this has played out in the last week, what has been your initial thoughts over watching Jada's revelations, and then the way that the public is responding to that?
So kudos to you for the interview. Such an enlightening interview. And I've listened to a couple of Jada's interviews this week, and I celebrate her. I celebrate the courage it takes to be vulnerable. And we're not used to seeing that level of vulnerability for Black women. Right. And so she's coming out and she's speaking her truth. Whether we agree with the decisions she makes or not doesn't matter. She's sharing her journey, and I followed her and Will's journey. His book is awesome too, by the way, right? If you read, both of them have done a lot of individual work, and they've done a lot of work on their relationship. And I celebrate that journey. And if we could step back from the contempt of another Black woman for a moment and just look at the example that she's sharing with us of doing her work. Because what she shared with us is, look who taught her how to love. You know, when she said she thought about the title, she changed the title from unlovable, right? Her own father said that he could not be her father as a child. So she's had a very traumatic journey in relationships and what she learned from relationships, and then trying to fix that and reinvent that in her own relationships. And not all of us are public. You shared that, Crystal. You're like, I don't think I could have shared that, right? Public speaking is the number one fear in the world.
Yeah.
So there's a few of us that are called to be in that space, to be an example for others. And I really find it disheartening to see the narrative that people want to paint of her. I really don't feel like there's a lot of people in this world that are ready for a free Black woman. Free and vocal and doing her work and unapologetic of who she is. Because, you know, we've been painted in roles. What we see in media, what we see in the movies, Black women can only fit in certain boxes. And what Jada has said is, I don't fit in any of those boxes. Right. And this has been my journey, and she's unapologetic about that. And I celebrate her for that.
I like that. Let me ask this, Dr. Nicole, because one of the things that, I mean, this is a woman being honest about who she is, and that, like you said, and she said that she was like, Black women's stories are taboo. You know, women's stories are taboo, specifically Black women, and I could relate to her in so many ways, because she talks about being a child of addicted parents. Both her mother and her father were struggling with drug addiction. I come from a background where my father was a drug addict. A friend of mine shared, Tierney Gundy shared how her father was a drug addict, and that affected her. I want to ask both of you, when we look at this, and we're looking at it in terms of two bigger than life celebrities, but do you think this is an opportunity for us to really understand the I guess the brevity of what happens to some of us as we're trying to unlearn, we're trying to be in relationships. And if you've dealt with so many people, I thought growing up, I was the only person that had a father that was on drugs until I shared. And then I learned, oh, that's not so, that's not so uncommon. And I didn't feel so alone. And like, I had a lot of shame because of that. But I also don't think I've ever really seen people acknowledge what coming up in toxicity and pain and dysfunction, what does that look like when you're trying to be in a relationship yourself? Do we understand what that impact is on us later as we are in a relationship and trying to live this American fantasy that is really unattainable if you come from such, from a background that has so much pain and toxicness and you haven't become aware of that yet?
Well, we've been taught that anything that speaks truth but doesn't celebrate the other person is dishonoring them. So the only truth that is allowed is a celebratory narrative. Whether or not that's really the truth doesn't matter, right? So that's where we have the phrases, what happens in this house stays in this house. That's where we have, you can't talk about a challenging relationship with your mother, because the only one you're allowed to talk about is your father, because that's the only narrative that is going to be accepted. So therefore, what happens, we have all of these training grounds that say to us, stuff, oppress, be quiet, say nothing, let the persona be your front-facing narrative. To the point where outside of the public, you can't be honest. Because what if this person that I'm seeking to be honest with can't accept my truth? But the challenge is we don't have a lot of practice with that's celebrated.
Right.
So when we look at things like childhood abuse and different things that we've experienced as people that you mentioned, Crystal, you'll hear people say, well, don't say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because your narrative is to protect
Mm-hmm.
or to be in a stance where you must be invisible to your own pain, invisible to your own truth, just invisible. If that's the way we live, guess what? We are as sick as our secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We are as sick as our secrets in our families. We are as sick as our secrets. So when we get to the point where we can say, this is my truth. Now, how you choose to share that, that's your story.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we have to do is have a level of deference for the fact that it's your life.
Right.
You're living it, and you get to speak your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't correct anything you say in rage. I can't correct anything you say because I'm not living your experience. And there's a certain level of deference I should have if
Mm-hmm.
I am honoring you as a human being to speak your truth.
Mm.
But you know what's so interesting about that? I'm sorry, Crystal.
No, you're
Is
fine.
the judgments and the comments come from people's own limiting beliefs and traumas.
Mm-hmm.
So when we speak of Jada being a free woman, right? The freedom to speak her truth, whether you like it or not, the judgments that you see come from our own limiting beliefs that what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
What a woman's place is in the marriage, what a woman's place is in the world, right? All of that comes from your own trauma and your own limiting beliefs. And if we could step back and do our own work, instead of judging other people for their work, wow, what a difference could be made.
Yeah.
And you know what, Crystal, I was going to say too, can we just look at my face? Can we just not be so married to being on the surface?
Mm-hmm.
Can we are so committed to being on the surface, which is where rage and all of that stuff comes from. Because can we be clear? Nobody is publishing a book that has Will Smith's name in it unless Will Smith has given permission to reveal that information. So as we are in our systemic self-betrayal, our systemic lack of deference for one another's stories, we forget he knew what was in the book.
Yeah.
You got to release that.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to release, yes, my name, my likeness can be used in this way.
Yeah.
For this, I agree. So as we sit here needing a victim, like, because that's systemic, right? The crabs, when they're in the water, they don't fight each other.
Right.
They not crawling on top of each other in the water.
Yeah.
When you put them in a barrel, that's what they do because they're in a barrel. Instead of being so ready to systemically need a victim, can we just say, what is my responsibility to be respectful of another person's right to have their story? Because I didn't grow up with those rights. Can I just say? I'm free now. But I didn't grow up with those rights. And a PhD didn't give me those rights. Going to an all-girls school did not give me those rights. Bleed blue, spell me all the way, did not give me those rights, right? I had to fight to learn the right to respect my own story, much less respect other people's.
Well, if you guys are just joining, I'm heavy. It's heavy with so much information and so much wisdom, as these two ladies always deliver. We're talking with Dr. Nicole and her business partner, Crystal Khalil. And I wanted to ask both of you, and then I know we got more things to talk about. But before we pivot from this situation with Jada and Will, there's such a difference in the way we receive information from a man than from a woman, right?
Yes.
So that is so interesting to me because for all, you know, I've been a publicist for many years, and when we realize that a man has done damage in a way to his relationship, we, you know, people say things, but he's kind of given a pass. There's kind of understood, what's understood does not need to be said. We don't make him the victim. We don't go after him with such anger, and it's just different when a woman does something. And so my question, because Will, you know, they've both been very vocal. Some people say we wish we were out of the family group chat, but they've both been vocal about about their relationship. And Will has talked about having fantasies of other women. He named Holly Berry and the ballerina Misty Copeland, the ballerina of women that he fantasized about. So when we hear Jada Pinkett as a woman, as a wife, say that she believed that Tupac was her soulmate, men became enraged, right? But I just don't remember that same, you know, anger and just passionate fury online unleashed when Will Smith acknowledged that he has fantasies about women that are not his wife. I also will just say, as a wife, that would hurt me to hear my husband publicly acknowledge that he's having fantasies about other women, that having a harem would be his idea of a perfect life. That is hurtful. Just as we hear people saying, taking up for Will, and like you said, Will has read the book. Jada was clear with me that he read it cover to cover and is supportive. We see him with her celebrating. Why are we making Will a victim of Jada's truth, but Jada is not a victim of Will's truth?
I'll say it one more time, Crystal. We make our judgments from our own limiting belief systems. Will and Jada have a very clear negotiated agreement in their marriage, right? They are, you can see that they are doing their work individually, they're doing their work together. Whatever their agreement is about who they see and infidelity, all those things, they have an agreement, and they have agreed that they're going to stay married regardless. That it doesn't matter what the world thinks. They're going to do their work, and they're going to work with one another and keeping their marriage intact. And that has to be honored, right? That is a marital agreement. But we make our judgments based on what we've learned about where a woman's place in the relationship. And then there's a deeper level too of a Black woman speaking her truth, right? Because our tears don't get the same respect.
Right. That part.
Our tears do not get the same empathy. They don't get the same respect. So she is villainized by a lot of people because, you know, Black women don't get to be free in that way and own their own sexuality and own their own voice and be able to say, you know, this is what we've agreed on in our marriage, and this is who I am, and I'm not perfect. I'm still doing my work, but here I am.
And, you know, we've been conditioned that you said something powerful. You said, Crystal, if I heard my husband say that, I would be hurt by that. But we don't hurt. We are in a system that has conditioned us to look at each other as non-hurting beings, not human beings, but beings. Men to look at us as non-hurting. The medical profession, the educational profession, all of the industries look at us as not having a human hurting feeling disposition.
Right.
So if that is the system, then when you speak of your pain, who can even understand that would affect you? Who would even understand that affects you? But when someone else speaks of their pain, then they look to us and say, why did you cause that? Right?
That is true, because I will tell you this, and it's so weird because I feel like we do it to each other. A lot of the hateful comments and anger is from Black women against Black women. And I will be honest. I know that I'm that strong friend that people probably don't, people are like, oh, you're so, and I'm thinking, I'm, I'm glad I come off that way, but I've been hurt a lot. I'm very soft on the inside.
You're like, see about me.
See,
Somebody see about me, please. Can somebody see about me?
But people think when you are able to continue on that you're not. And I was talking to Jada. I was excited to talk to her because she's a woman that I respect, how she is able to articulate. She's brilliant. And when I'm reading this book and I'm hearing her acknowledge that she had times where she was contemplating suicide, I'm not going to lie. I saw her as the strong Black woman that wouldn't dealt with that. I saw her, and I'm in the same position on a much different level, but I'm like, why would I think those same attributes that people see in me, I see them in her, and I think, oh, she's not, I was surprised to hear her share that she was that vulnerable, knowing that I've experienced similar depression and dealt with things, but it's almost like you said, with Black women, if we're able to stand up, we're not seen as human. We're not seen as having, being able to hurt. And that's also why it's so interesting that people are, the only comments that I see, the biggest, because we see comments of all type, but the biggest cry is, oh my God, she's hurting Will. That is the biggest cry, because we do feel like that we do have a responsibility not to hurt Black men to an extent, But when it comes to Black women, we don't even give each other grace. How can we start to reverse that? Because I want to, I love the fact that you guys come with so much knowledge on what this issue is, but how do we start to reverse that reality for ourselves, right?
We wear so many masks, Crystal, and that's what Dr. Nicole and I do. We help women to remove those masks, because like you said, we show up as the strong woman. We're the one that everybody calls when they need for help, but you don't know who to call when you need help. Right. And you're wearing a mask of the fixer, the wife, the mom, the friend, the daughter, all those different things. And sometimes you don't know where the mask end and you begin, and you don't even know who you really are. And then you're pouring into everybody else's cup, and your cup is bone dry. And what happens when you're pouring into everybody else's cup? You're pouring at work, you're pouring at home, you're pouring in your relationships, in your church, wherever everybody's sucking you dry, you start to pull from a deficit. And that's where the depression comes from. That's where you start to feel like nobody sees me, nobody hears me, nobody calls and checks on me, nobody knows my pain, and they'll all be better off without me. So we have to start finding sources that fill our cup. We have to find safe spaces where we can take off the mask and just be, not just do, because we get affirmed for what we can do, who we are. And Jada, that's what she said. She's had so many different masks, even to the point where this whole entanglement situation came out. She put on the mask and played a role, even though they were not together at the time. Right? She played the role. She's showing up at the award ceremonies like husband and wife, wearing the mask, right, to please other people and to fit in the boxes that they've created. And that drains us. That drains us, and that starts us to feel depressed and undervalued and underseen. So we have to find the safe spaces where we can just be. And we have to also create safe spaces for those we love to just be. And understand nobody is exempt from this life. This thing called living. Life is life, and for everybody. Nobody is exempt. I don't care what you have, right? The things, the trinkets, the trash, all of the cars, it does not matter. Money does not make you happy.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing I saw with this. I was like, there's the money, access, success, even success, financial success, I mean, there's no level of success that can truly provide happiness. If you guys are just joining, again, we are having a conversation with our good friends Dr. Nicole and Crystal Khalil, and they are here talking with us today. We're talking about just relationships, specifically when it comes to Black women, and I'm excited because they're here. This is about 2 weeks out. The ladies just launched a brand new podcast titled Yummy. And so we have them here with us today. And I want to know what encouraged, what was the motivation for you guys to create this space and this podcast? And what are you guys hoping to accomplish with it?
You know, some of what we're talking about in reference to something sensational that happened last week. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we are all seeking to experience our ultimate, most meaningful yet. Mm-hmm. Yummy is an acronym. Your ultimate, most meaningful yet. And the power of that acronym is there are a lot of good things that you could do. There are a lot of cool things that you could do. But what's the yummy? What's the purpose? What is the customized fit when you are being authentic, when you are being truly truthful about where you are, what you're being called to, what you've experienced, what you've overcome, what drives you? When you are being authentic, that's your gateway to freedom, and that's your gateway to helping other people to be in that space, right? Mm-hmm. Because the more, one of the things that's interesting about so many stories that have come out in the past year and a half, probably could list a couple, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the only way it's acceptable is if you deny, and lie. But we the same people that will say from a Christian perspective that God is truth. Right? Now listen, we're not saying don't have discretion and discernment. Right. Discretion and discernment are very important. Mm-hmm. But we got to start practicing that yummy that is really ours for the taking, to be able to say, you can't put me in a cage because that's not where I live. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing about my life that you can use to shame me or embarrass me or have me lock myself in a room. Mm-hmm. For you to be a spectator and have a voyeuristic view of, because every part of my life, every decision, every point of healing, every point of expression has helped me to grow, to learn, and sometimes to have fun. Yeah. So let me share with you what those are for me. And our guests come on and they speak truth. Mm-hmm. Because Crystal and I are kind of those girls that we like, you ain't got to wear the mask with us. This conversation is all that is required because we want to learn and grow from you. So this podcast is such an ode to be authentic and show us how, because we're all on that journey. We're all trying to figure it out in different aspects of our lives. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's yummy. It's so good, Crystal, because you just sit there and say, now that's what I'm talking about. Okay, let me change something over here. Let me do something different.
You get to see them. You get to see our guests actually having those aha moments on the show, because we go beneath the mask, we peel back the onion. So it's like, we know that you are known for what you can do and who you are in the world, but we really just want to know who you are at your core, beneath the mask. Like, we want to know who you are. And when you start to see those masks falling off and the armor falling off, and then the soul begins to speak. That's the yummy.
Yeah.
It's so yummy. One of the things that we say too, Crystal, is, because we do this kind of work, we realize that most people who have done their work, by the time you are exposed to what they've been working on that for years. You're you fully upset that I just said my dad was on drugs. I've been dealing with my dad being on drugs for how many years of my life that I've been living?
Absolutely.
So I've been in therapy for 5 years, and this is hypothetical, but it's real. I've been in therapy for 5 years. I went through a divorce because I married a drug addict. I've struggled with my children because one of them was predisposed. So by the time you hear it, give enough grace to recognize it's sensational and it's news to you.
Right.
But ease back and recognize when we're doing our work to get to our yummy, to get to the point where we can share maskless conversation with you. We have been working.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I could second that, because I could tell you all today that my father died from a drug overdose. But I back in after he died, I was in Alcoholics Anonymous trying to figure out what I did all that work to allow me to get to the point where a few years ago I could share that. But that wasn't the beginning of that work. That wasn't the beginning of that at all. So let's talk about that, because there are so many people that are responding to what we've heard our sister Jada say, because they could never, like I could never, we all got secrets back there, but most of us could never. And I had a moment that I feel like was a yummy moment just for me. There are certain things that happen in your life that I feel like are presents to you and not necessarily for other people. But I had a conversation with Afeni Shakur at Tupac's foundation here before she passed. And I had just gone through a really embarrassing divorce as I saw it, because everybody knew me and knew my family. And then all of a sudden I came back sans a husband, and the husband was out with just, gallivanting in a new relationship. And I was so humiliated. And I shared that with her. I didn't even want to show my face. And she said that when you tell your own story, you take people's power away from being able to tell the story for you. And there's nothing that you, and I remember thinking, wow, but I didn't have the courage when she told me that in 2008 to do that. It took me a lot of work to get to the point where I could do that. So my question to you ladies is, for anyone that's watching this now in the live or that would watch it later, how can we do, what can we begin to do so that we can even get to the point where we would have the courage to begin to take off those masks? Because that takes a lot of courage in itself to even begin to look at ourselves and start to do the work.
Oh, that's so good. Because when you put in the work with therapy and coaching and finding those safe spaces, Crystal, and you build the muscle of authenticity and vulnerability, and you're able to share your story like you shared your divorce, you've shared, your father being having substance abuse issues. What that does is your vulnerability gives other people permission to be vulnerable. And what you'll find is then when you start sharing that story, people say, oh my God, my father was on drugs too. Oh my God, I went through a terrible divorce too. And it gives them a safe space to then share their story, right? And it's powerful. And you have to just trust that, in the Bible, it says, Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good, right? For those who are called according to his purpose. And it goes on further to say, and those who are called are fortified, and those who are fortified are justified.
Amen.
So
Amen.
you have to go through some things,
Amen.
right? To be called, you've got to go through some things, but they all work together for the good and the bad. And what we fail sometimes to realize is it says good. Now, good is not always pleasant, but it's always good. All things work together for the good, but it may not always be pleasant. Yeah. So those things, God will make you an example of the things you talk about.
Yes, he will.
But it's freeing when you're correct courageous enough to share it, you free yourself and you free others.
And courage is on a continuum. Again, we just got to go deeper because we love being on the surface, right?
It's safe.
But the thing, Crystal, that's interesting is it's safe in the illusion, but it's toxic to everything that is good,
So
right?
true.
It makes it so that nothing can be healed, nothing can be whole, because what you're married to is that methodology, not a different outcome.
Right.
So what we say is, first of all, it takes courage to just admit, yeah, they had a problem.
Yeah.
Thank God for that courage to just call it what it is. Then it takes another level of courage to say, I am 46 years old and I am still hurting over that. Good for you, sis. That took another level of courage. Then another level to say, oh, Lord, go talk to somebody because I'm in rage a lot. And I'm not really sure why, because I just got the new shoes and I just got the car and I just got the promotion. And I'm so upset.
I've got lots of degrees and
people like me, but I'm lonely and I'm upset all the time. Oh, that's another level of courage to go and say, I don't know what's happening. And everybody's told me that this is some foolishness. This therapy, this coaching, all that stuff is foolishness. But I got to do something. And another level of courage to say, oh, this is my work to do.
It's me.
It's me. Versus saying, ain't no, what they gonna tell me? What a therapist gonna tell me? Their job is not to tell you. Their job is to partner with you in your healing experience with the tools that they have. But again, because courage is on a continuum, we got to take the steps and we got to celebrate each other in the steps. So when people come on the Yummy podcast, some of them are saying some yummy stuff for them that's in their moment of courage. And some people are like, wow, I'm not nowhere near there.
Yeah.
You're on the path. So take that and use it for yourself. Lift your own ceiling of what is possible for your health, for your healing, for your yummy. But we got to be willing to recognize this thing ain't passive.
No, it's not. Dr. Nicole, we so enjoyed. I mean, you know, you and I would talk and I would leave our conversations like, let me sit with what Dr. Nicole said and then let me apply that to what I'm going through, even though I am not waiting to put a ring on it. I have put a ring on it, but I want to use, you gave such amazing tools from that show. I think one of the most important things I took away from it when you're looking at family dynamic and the fallout is often that the man has the ability to heal. And so often we don't see that happen. I want to ask you, just from doing that show, relationships are something that we talk about on this channel all the time. And the listeners that are here and the listeners that will hear this later, they come here because they love the conversations from a positive perspective. I would love for you to share, what did you take from where we are? You had a lot of people, young people and people in their early 30s and early 40s that were on this show. They come and the guise of it was to, you know, figure out if I'm ready to get married. But, you know, whenever you would start to talk to them, we learned that there was so much more than just, are we going to get married? So much more that they had. What are some of the takeaways that you can share? Because I think that show is a great reflection of what's going on in so many households all over the world, but specifically with us as African Americans. So just what did you take away from that experience hosting that show and seeing how so many relationships are in a state of disarray? I don't even know if it's a state of emergency, but we definitely have an issue with Black men and Black women.
You know, it was such an assignment, a divinely ordered assignment, that Crystal and I have had the opportunity to work with so many people that were put in our path because of the show. And what I loved about it was the celebration of their courage to do something different. We have been given a lot of beliefs. We've been sold a lot of beliefs. We've been forced into a lot of beliefs. We've swallowed a lot of beliefs, and we've made a lot of beliefs our own that were not originated for us, by us, or with us in mind. The beauty of being a person that can do your work is that you can look at certain things and say, you know, that ain't supposed to make no sense. Not in English. But it's not supposed to make any sense that I would be a child that was in a household with parents who struggled with being parents, as an example. And I just was not affected by that at all. That don't make no sense. If you're living this experience, it is now your time to say, what are the questions and what are the things that I need to unpack and figure out so that I don't walk around either not being able to feel or being bridled by my own pain? Because that's not what it's supposed to be like. So when I hear people say things like, it is what it is, I'm like, it's not. It's not. You say that because you need it to be that, but you created what is. So you get to say, okay, I don't know what none of this stuff is about. Let me go like my sister, because Crystal, that Crystal Khalil, she loves some snacks. Now, if we go into the grocery store, she's the one that'll be like, oh, this looks interesting. And I'll be the one that be like, it ain't an Oreo and it ain't Chips Ahoy and it ain't, I'm good. She's like, it's got mustard sauce with honey drizzle. Let's try it. I wish we were like that about things that people tell us won't work for us, but they work for every other community. They work for everybody else, but they won't work for us. Therapy work for everybody else, but it won't work for us. Coaching work for everybody else, but it won't work for us. Accountability partners work for everybody else, but it ain't gonna work for us. I wish we were that curious to say, I have no idea. Yeah, I've not tried it, but I do know I don't feel what I should. And I do know that I feel so much that I'm drowning. And what we're saying to our listeners and our viewers, there is more. Don't settle for that. Don't settle for the stuff. You can have purpose. You can have connection. You can have relationships that are yummy and amazing and truthful and not judgmental, but still hold you accountable to your highest and best. Don't settle for that. And I love that the people on the show were basically saying, I want something different. And I'm willing to let someone hold the space for me to figure out if this is my highest and best as it relates to a relationship.
But I'll add what Dr. Nicole was masterful at is in that show, the couples would come and the focus would be on the other person. If you can fix them, then we can get married. Right? And so what my sister was able to do was take that finger and do like this in a masterful way that did not feel like contempt or condemnation, did not make them feel small, right? Didn't feel like judgment. She created a safe space where they realized, oh, it's about me. Oh, I came here to fix him, but really it's my own work to do. Right. And that's what we see when we work with people on this topic of relationships. There are some very basic tools, scientific tools is proven what will kill a relationship. right? It's proving what tools you need in your toolbox to create connection and build a healthy relationship. But a lot of us are walking around with toolbox and it's full of bubble gum and duct tape.
That part. Folks trying to build,
to hide the stuff, a little content to hide.
yes. Folks trying to build a mansion with the back of a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be your hammer? Is the back of a shoe? That's okay. And
Yeah.
and there's no, the fun thing is that there's no judgment. We know that we are experiencing different levels of brokenness. We know that because we know our history.
Mm-hmm.
If you know our history, you know it don't make no sense that we don't get some support. That is ridiculous. That all of us are experiencing different levels of trauma,
Right.
or post-traumatic
Mm-hmm.
dynamics. So you really think that the best case scenario is that you do this alone? Oh, honey, ain't you tired?
You let that bag down. Well, I'm as always so honored to have both of you here. Before you leave, I would love, because I feel like we are all, sisters, and there's very little separation among us. Like you said, we're all dealing with things. So I would just love for the two of you to give a message to our sister Jada Pinkett Smith, that is definitely going through, in the midst of success with this book that she's launching, that is out tomorrow. I'm sure that the backlash from all of this has affected. She would not be human, and as we've learned tonight, that we are all feeling, and so we know that she's dealing with that. But I would love for the two of you to give a message to Jada, that we can share, and in that, to Jada, it probably will resonate with the rest of us, and all those of us that are out dealing with similar situations that may not be on such a magnified platform.
Mm.
Hmm.
I would just say, Jada, I see you, sis, and I celebrate you. I celebrate your courage to be free to speak your truth, to do your work, to shine your light in dark spaces. I celebrate your courage to live despite the depression, to fight through and to live and to share that story with others who need hope and encouragement, right? And I celebrate your courage to do that in the face of all the noise, because unfortunately sometimes that's what we see and we hear, but there's more people that need a good word than there are those that are going to have something negative to say. You just don't always hear from them. So we
Mhm.
see you, we appreciate your courage as a Black woman to be a role model for other young Black women, to talk about your trauma, because there's other young Black women who have had similar experiences, and when they look at you, they can see that they can make it, that there's hope for overcoming those situations. So I would just thank her. I would just thank you, Jada, for sharing your story.
Yeah. Hmm. The title of your book is Worthy, and your beautiful face is on the cover. So you knew that this was going to cause some of this, maybe not all of it, but some of this, because your beautiful face is on the cover, and right over your face is the word worthy,
Mm.
which is what we as Black women are fighting for every day, is to be safe and to be seen. So, sis, may you find soft pillows in places you could not dream or imagine in this time. No judgment, just soft pillows to tell your story so that other women can be safe and seen and tell their story. God bless.
I love that. On the back of her book, just to add this before we let you guys go, there's a quote that starts with, "A queen is her own savior." And I just think that's so, it perfectly sums up what this conversation is about. It perfectly sums up what her taking the initiative to tell her story really embodies. And I am so thankful to the two of you for continuing to be that example and to continuing to put out information so that we can learn through others and we can learn from that example. You are always welcome to come back. So we look forward to having you guys again.
Thank you, Crystal.
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys know you are part of my tribe. I'm like, I need to listen and learn and share it with this channel, because I'm so thankful that people entrust me to be able to bring things to them. So when I can do that in a way that inspires and really comes from a real place, I'm honored. So thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Crystal. And you know what? We've got a Woman Unlimited Live that is happening on the 21st. It's coming up 21st of October, this Saturday at 9 o'clock, where women all over the globe, if you can get in the room, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's going to bless you, because a lot of the things that we are talking about here, you're going to get to practice and connect with other women who are doing amazing things that are trying to get to their yummy. So if you are free on Saturday morning, 9 a.m., womanunlimitedlive.com, go and register. It is at no cost. womanunlimitedlive.com. I don't like to say it's free, because you got to do your work. But it is at no charge. It is at no cost. We would love to have you, and it's going to be transformative. So we hope to see you in the room.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'll put that website there, and we'll definitely share this as always. Again, thank you so much to both of you, to my sisters, for joining me tonight. And I look forward to connecting with you guys again soon.
Thank you, Crystal. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out again. I hope you were blessed by that conversation. If you're watching this after the live, please make sure to share this. Make sure that you share. You guys know I am not one to constantly ask that you share and subscribe, but for this type of conversation that I know can bless so many others, I'm asking you to please do your work, pay it forward, and share this with a sister that needs this. Remember that website for you to tune in with Dr. Nicole and Crystal Khalil this Saturday is womanunlimitedlive.com. That's womanunlimitedlive.com. Be back here on Friday, because my co-host Mo and I will be recapping Ready to Love, Make a Move. We've had a lot of conversation, but I hope conversations like this help you when you're watching shows like that to, again, give our sisters a little grace. See ourselves in those stories, and to, as Dr. Nicole and Crystal said, work to get to our yummy space together. I love you all for watching. I will see you right back here Friday at 10. Have a beautifully productive week, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.